Okay, so now that you hopefully have even put in more scenery than I have, we're going to talk about how we make our 3D model look more like the actual thing we want it to be. How we create render textures is the simple thing, right? This works differently depending on what kinds of objects we're dealing with. So walls have one approach. They are because of the wall tool articulation. Other symbols have different ways to edit those textures. You have to enter into the symbol in order to edit the 3D properties, right? But we'll start with our walls because I actually want to, and I'm going to just get back into my Vectorworks file. I want to start by making my theater look more like a theater and less like a white box, right? Because most theaters are not a white box, right? So what I need in order to do that is some sort of a gray texture that I can apply to the walls, like a gray paint, right? And when I scroll through, there's this kind of textile black plastic, like that's kind of okay, right? It's not ideal. So I'm going to actually create a new texture that will be my gray paint for my walls. So I'm going to say a new resource, and I'm going to go down, and it's going to be way down at the bottom. Hold on, let me see if I can. I've reshaped my resource manager so you can actually see it. New resource, and then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to add a RenderWorks texture. Click on that, and now it's creating a new texture, and I'm going to call this dark gray paint. I'm not going to actually make it paint, but it's going to be basically a dark gray paint color. The color right now is identified as object attribute, but what I really want it to be is a color, and then I can hit edit, and then I can go into the color shader, and then eventually, when I get deep enough in, I can choose a dark gray. And I can either choose one of these sort of classic Vectorworks colors, standard Vectorworks colors are here. There are other palettes, so like if I wanted Bear paint, it would be a thing I could choose, right? So if I know I'm working with Bear paint and I know which Bear paint color I want or which Roscoe color I want, those things all exist here in these menus. But we're going to just pick a regular gray because this is the theater. This is not my design. I'm going to pick something kind of medium dark. That's a little too dark. Let's go one step brighter than that. Okay, so, and we're going to say, okay, so dark gray paint now exists. It will just infinitely paint things that dark gray color. When I add that now onto my walls, it's going to make it so that the whole theater sort of darkens down to that shade. So I'm going to want to go into the layer that my walls are active in, which is not going to be the scenery layer. It's probably the theater floor plan layer. See how they highlight orange now? And then I'm going to pick up this tool over here, the texture painter, texture tool. I can then select my dark gray paint, and then I should be able to just paint the walls, right? This dark gray paint is defaulting to, or I'm sorry, the texture tool is defaulting to turn the whole object that color, okay? So what that means is over here, it is, there's the apply to object mode, and it paints all the edges and sides of a wall that color. There's also the apply to face mode, which only dumps that color on one side of something. So if that's what you would prefer to do, that's there. And then there are replace matching textures or pickup modes, where you can pick up the texture from something and put it on something else. So those are your 4 options with your texture painter tool. We're going to stay in apply to object mode. I'm going to just keep painting stuff until I can't touch any more of it, right? So now I'm painting my seating or my stage pieces, right? I want to paint my seating risers, but they are on a separate layer to protect me. I'm going to paint those, paint my little stairs. Cute, cute, cute. Paint, right? The texture painter tool does not really play well with symbols. So I should be able to paint this. I think I can paint this. Yeah, I can paint that railing. I can paint some things. I can't paint all things, right? So if I wanted to paint my desk a wood color, for example, and we'll do that next, if I'm painting something which is a symbol already. So let's say I want to change my desk. My desk, when I select it, I have to be back on my scenery layer once again. Oh, my beanbag chair. She in the floor. let's bring her up out of the floor. If I want to paint my desk, I don't think it will let me if I even just click it, right? I have to actually edit the component in order to do so. So I'm going to double click to edit the 3D components, and then I can, you know, take my paintbrush and I can paint it. In this case, I'm going to use an existing resource texture. So some of the textures that exist already in Vectorworks are going to be things like all of your wood grains, so all of these wood grains exist as different flavors. There are some fabrics that exist. There are various different curtain materials, stuff like that. So bricks and stones and all that stuff. So I'm going to pick a wood texture. Putting it in that specific folder just for funsies so that I know I have it. Okay, and now I can fix whatever happened with the computer. Okay. All right, so now I have my little paintbrush. I can even select all and hit the paintbrush, right? One of the things that you may want to do, or you may find you want to do, is to change the direction of a texture on a specific surface. And you can do that as an override, which seems like a whole bunch of words, but let's say I'm talking about this edge of my table. So I'm going to just look at the side of my table. If I want this to seem more normal, all of these edges of the table are going to actually run, the wood grain is going to run in the opposite direction, right? You're not going to get vertical wood grain on the edge of the table. You're going to get a long piece of wood that goes horizontally. So in general, the wood grain is going to run with the length of a board, is just how trees get turned into wood products. So if I want to come in here and I want to adjust this, I can select this, and then I can go into the object info in the render section, right? And currently it's overall, right? But I can come in and I can do like an override on a specific face. And I'm going to do this by getting out my little paintbrush, getting out this little thing. I'm going to switch to a different one, a different texture, like my dark gray paint. And I'm going to just override on that face, right? So that I have a separate instance, and I can override on another face, right? So what this does in my object info is it creates a separate instance of that texture. And what that's going to do for me is allow me to individually control the alignment of that texture on my object. So now that I have those overrides identified, and they're in this little part of this menu, right? I have dark gray paint, dark gray paint, dark gray paint. But I did those overrides. Let me fly back around to a side of this where I can see it better. Okay. This is also a time when you see I was looking through all of that white, where it might be helpful to me to just turn off my theater wall and chairs for this project so that I can isolate my scenery and see what I'm actually working on. So let's say I want to fix one of these faces, right? When I select that individual face, it highlights, you see how it's highlighting it in orange, so that I can identify which one I'm talking to. Then I can come in here and I can say, hey, I want wood texture for this, right? And it will put it back to being wood texture. But now that I have set it up as an override, I can realign this texture to be going the length of the board. So I can come in here and I can rotate it 90 degrees, right? And now the top of the table looks normal, and so does this edge, right? Now this edge looks like a normal board because it's going horizontally, right? I would want to do that with the edges here. Like this end grain makes basic sense. Like it's not perfect, but it basically makes sense. This edge being the lines going vertical, the direction of the grain going vertical makes no sense. So I would want to come back and correct it so that this edge of my tabletop is running in that direction, right? So this is a little bit twitchy. It's fine tuning. If you don't get to it, don't lose your mind. but it is important to align textures in the direction that you want, and this is how you do it, and this is how you use that face override to go in and refine a texture on a specific surface, okay? And that is, again, inside of a symbol. So you can do that here, you can do that with your beanbag chair, you can change its color by dumping a whole texture onto that object. You want to do that with your floor. And for the floor, I actually want, if I go into the top plan view, I want to choose a texture. Am I on the floor layer? Who knows? No, I'm not. That's why I can't select it. All right, I'm going to choose my floor. The thing which has happened before, just so you know, is a texture won't appear if the fill isn't solid. So if you have made this floor transparent for some reason, make sure your fill is solid on your floor so that it has that dimensionality, and make sure that it has a little bit of extrude. Mine is just a 1/4 inch extrude. But again, that allows me to stick a texture on it, which is what I'm going to want to do. If I say wood floor, it's going to pull up all of these wood flooring options. And I believe that they may come with a different set of components because of it being a wood floor. So I'm going to make this a wood floor. You don't have to make it a wood floor. You can make it a concrete floor. Make it a whatever kind of floor you want. But it is helpful. This is very dark. I'm going to continue to select a destination folder just so I can know where it is, and we'll see. So I can use my paintbrush tool, right? I have now paintbrushed it, so if I go into the render texture, it is there, ebony wood flooring. You'll notice nothing changed visibly, and that's because I'm looking at it in top plan view. If I switch to top view, I can now see there's like a detailed parquet, dark parquet wood floor happening underneath my office, which is probably more expensive than is really what is expected in this particular space, right? But that's how you add a floor. Choose a floor texture just because it'll have the appropriate repeat for the floor that you're using. And then similarly, you can do this with the back wall, right? I think in some of the research, the back wall was a brick wall, so that might be something that you go with. And you will either select your wall. So either you get out your paintbrush, and you'll have to like go into the wall necessarily to do that, right? So either get out your paintbrush, or you can look over here in your object info, and you can choose just one side of your wall to paint. So you could just paint either right or left, whichever one is facing downstage, if that's easier or better for you. I would also, if you happened to get these bright blue chairs like I did, and I don't like them, but I got them, you can edit them in your resource manager. So if you go into your resource manager and you choose your thing and you switch it back to the everything, the all resources tab, one of the things that you will see, maybe, is the chair container record. No. Oh boy. No. I don't know where that chair is. Life is strange. We will go into the seating section this way then. We'll select this chair. We'll see what it is called. It is a 2D3D simple. Event Chair 1. And then you can double click and edit its 3D component, right? And then it is basing its color on this fill right now. So if you look at its render texture, it is defaulting to the color that's here, right? So if I want to change its seat color to just a gray, I can change it right there. I can exit out of that symbol, and the seats are gray now. Okay, the upholstery on the seats are gray. It's not really a texture, it's just a color wand, but that's actually enough for what I need it to be, okay? So you will go through, you will texturize whatever you need to, update your colors, look back at that research and make it match as best as you can, and then you can save and go on to the next thing. All right, awesome. Thanks, bye.